It's a scary headline for the front page of Boulder, Colorado's small-town daily newspaper. A warning from the mother of a little beauty queen, JonBenét Ramsey, who was murdered in her own home sometime Christmas night. Patsy Ramsey warned other parents, keep your babies close to you. There is someone out there. The parents tried to avoid cameras today. They're still in Atlanta where they buried their daughter 2 days ago. But last night, police in Boulder were shocked to see John and Patsy Ramsey interviewed on cable television. The police, who have now sent 5 detectives to Atlanta, have been saying the parents were too grief-stricken to be interviewed by them. The interview provided a lot of details police have refused to release. Specifically, what the parents say was a 3-page ransom note. The mother said she found it in a stairway leading to the kitchen. It was addressed, she said, to Mr. Ramsey, and the first line read, "We have your daughter." The father said the note warned, "Don't call the police." Each parent has hired a lawyer, but both say it's sickening at any hint they may be involved. Still, there are many unanswered questions. The parents acknowledge the killer must have known the house. The girl's bedroom was on the 2nd floor, but the body was left in an obscure room in the basement, and there were no signs of a break-in. It's also reported the girl was strangled with a noose-like cord and her mouth taped. JonBenet was a pretty and very talented 6-year-old. She'd won several beauty contests. Tonight, though, it is the mystery of her death, which so many people are wondering about.
The mystery surrounding JonBenet's death only grew. New details emerged, but they only seemed to add to the confusion and the nagging doubts.
A fresh blanket of snow this morning gave a sense of tranquility to the home where JonBenét Ramsey was murdered 12 days ago. But the little girl's mother is telling friends she will never go back there. The parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, are back in Colorado, attending a church service in Boulder Sunday before going back into seclusion. Pictures of the family were choreographed by their newly hired media consultant. The Ramseys are a media-savvy family, from putting together a 12-minute video Christmas card 2 years ago
A very Merry Christmas
to their little girl's numerous appearances in beauty pageants.
JonBenét Ramsey.
The family even bought space in Babette magazine, a publication for little children who compete on the pageant circuit. The police investigation into the strangulation of the 6-year-old has now widened to 3 states. In addition to searching the family home in Colorado, police have questioned as many as 30 relatives and friends in Georgia where they once lived. And today, NBC News learned detectives executed a search warrant at the Ramsey vacation home in Charlevoix, Michigan. Police asked the judge there to seal the warrant because, quote, it contains information known only to the killer or killers.
That search is part of our active, ongoing investigation, gathering information.
Over the weekend, a few more unconfirmed details leaked out. The paper the ransom note was written on came from a legal pad police found in the home. The electronic alarm system at the Ramseys was not turned on the night of the murder, and at least a dozen keys to the house were in the possession of people outside the family. In Colorado today, people are beginning to wonder if the parents, who have yet to be formally interrogated by the police, are getting special treatment.
You have money, you have influence, and you can make things easier for yourself.
Something's wrong there.
It will be a long time before things are right at JonBenet's elementary school. Grief counselors were on hand today trying to explain the tragedy, and there was a moment of silence for the little beauty queen.
Questions about the parents, questions about the police, when Time and Again continues.
Now to the Colorado murder story, which has gained interest across the country. The 6-year-old beauty pageant contestant, JonBenét Ramsey, and the turn the investigation has taken today. Here's NBC's Roger O'Neill.
The Christmas candy canes which lined the walkway to the little girl's home in Boulder have come down. But a single pink rose left by a stranger reminds everyone there was a murder here 16 days ago. Today, police confirmed they were looking into a 911 call from the Ramsey home several days before Christmas and before the murder, but it was what officers call a hang-up. No recording was made. The lack of any apparent police progress in making an arrest is leading some to question whether police lost important clues and evidence. Specifically, when officers didn't go along with the father, John Ramsey, to search the home. He found his daughter's body in the basement, but may have contaminated the crime scene. The father claims in his rush to see if JonBenet was still alive, he moved the body, carrying it upstairs. The position of the rope around her neck and a second rope around her wrist also changed. And he says he ripped the tape off his daughter's mouth. The murder and the mystery around it is capturing worldwide attention. Reporters from Australia are in Boulder. British newspapers and television are carrying the story, and the tabloids will too in their next editions. In yet another unusual twist in this unusual and tragic case, the police chief in Boulder will talk to the community, but his words will surely be heard around the world. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Boulder.
That was January 9th, 1997. That evening, Boulder's police chief defended his department's handling of the case and asked the media to back off. It didn't happen.
As Boulder police narrow their list of possible suspects, the family of JonBenét Ramsey seems to be moving out of the spotlight. NBC News has learned the older half-brother and half-sister of the little girl were in Atlanta the morning after Christmas, the morning the body was found. Until now, police have only said the older siblings, 20-year-old John Jr. and 24-year-old Melinda, were out of state, but never how far. The family's media consultant, Pat Corton, claims handwriting experts hired by the Ramseys now agree with the preliminary police analysis that John and Patsy Ramsey's handwriting and that of their 9-year-old son, Burke, do not match the ransom note. NBC News has also learned that 3-page note may have been written by more than one person. It is still being analyzed in this police lab by forensic scientists.
He's in the background.
Meanwhile, John Douglas, a well-known former FBI expert on serial killers and sex crimes, has joined the Ramseys' private investigative team.
Here's a dossier on Lecter.
Douglas was the inspiration for one of the central characters in the movie The Silence of the Lambs.
May I speak with you? You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?
To analyze any case, what you have to do is, I've always said, is to walk in the shoes of the subject and the victim. You perpetrate a crime where you feel comfortable. You perpetrate a crime on your home turf.
With pressure building both legally and perhaps more importantly from a disgusted public, the newspaper tabloid Globe agreed late this afternoon not to print any more photos of JonBenét Ramsey's body. It also agreed to return to the Boulder coroner's office the 7 crime scene pictures it has. In return, Boulder officials agreed to drop all legal proceedings against the paper, but the settlement doesn't lessen the coroner's anger.
I think I'm on the record as having said that I think it's a despicable thing to do. I still stand by that statement.
Most Colorado stores refused to sell the tabloid this week, and a boycott against the magazine seemed to be growing, even though nationwide interest in the mystery shows no signs of letting up. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Boulder.
Soon after the murder of JonBenét Ramsey, her parents had hired lawyers, a media consultant, and a former FBI agent with a national reputation as a criminal profiler. NBC's Chris Hansen talked to him for Dateline in January 1997, just over a month after JonBenét's death.
I've sat down across a table from some of the country's greatest liars in the world, really, and I can sense it. And things just did not fit. The crime scene data just doesn't fit.
John Douglas, the pioneer of criminal personality profiling, is offering the first insider's view into the JonBenét Ramsey murder investigation. Douglas was called into the case not by police, but by lawyers retained by the little girl's parents.
Why did they hire you? They hired me to basically do an independent analysis in the hopes of determining who was responsible for the death of the daughter. And I said, I will give you an independent analysis, but you may not like what I have to say.
And that's because when he arrived here in Boulder, he immediately suspected the Ramseys. Although Douglas was limited by authorities on what evidence he could see, he was allowed in the house. He was briefed on the autopsy report, and he saw a photocopy of the so-called ransom note. And most importantly, he was given access to the Ramseys. And experience told him, look very closely at the parents. Douglas's 25 years of groundbreaking criminal profiling research with the FBI led to important breaks in dozens of major cases. He studied and interviewed scores of serial killers. He accurately profiled the Unabomber suspect years ago. and he was the inspiration for the character of Agent Jack Crawford in the film The Silence of the Lambs. Although the Boulder Police Department is releasing no information about the investigation, Douglas says it was clear to him that the Ramseys were the chief suspects when he arrived. So for Douglas, it was critically important to interview the parents.
How much time did you spend talking to Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey?
About 4 or 5 hours.
For Douglas, that interview 2 weeks after JonBenet was found murdered would prove to be crucial in forming his opinions, because he knew that whoever committed the crime had to have intimate knowledge of the Ramseys' $1 million home.
What struck me as really unusual is that the bedrooms, the family's mother and father's bedrooms, were so far away on that third floor that even if you weren't a sound sleeper, to have difficulty hearing any noise on the second floor because it is so far removed.
The Ramseys told Douglas that they all went to bed very early Christmas night because they were planning to fly to their other home in Michigan the next morning.
Mr. Ramsey gets up, takes a shower. The mother gets up to go downstairs to make some coffee, goes down the spiral staircase. On the last step, there's 3 pages of the letter, starts reading it, doesn't know what it is, and then she starts screaming, and Mr. Ramsey comes down, and you know, the instructions are don't contact the FBI, don't contact the police.
But the police are called. They search the house, but don't check a small basement room. Hours later, a distraught John Ramsey goes to the basement and discovers his daughter's body.
And everyone hears him screaming, and upstairs, my God, my baby, and grabs the child, removes the duct tape, and then carries the child upstairs where they're trying to resuscitate the child.
The crime scene and JonBenet's body were now contaminated by the family's desperate efforts to help the little girl. But Douglas says the parent's story contains important clues.
Generally, if a parent kills a child, they don't want to be the one to find the child. If they do a search, say in a residence, they'll get someone else to say, okay, Frank, you check this room, I'll be over here checking the other room. The other thing you look at is how the child is left. When parents kill, they usually place their child in a very, very peaceful type of look to it. They stage the crime scene.
Douglas says JonBenet was brutalized, that she had duct tape on her mouth. She suffered severe head wounds, and she was strangled and sexually assaulted. Douglas says the interview with the parents, which lasted more than 4 hours, was what ultimately turned him around.
When I'm looking at this man, Mr. Ramsey, if you did it, you are one hell of a liar. You are one hell of a liar if you did it. And you're putting on a great production here. But I just don't believe in my heart he did this, and not just in my heart from the analysis of the scene.
But you're being paid by the Ramsey family.
Right. You can pay me for my time, but you're not going to pay for my opinion or pay for my, jeopardize my reputation.
Are you convinced, based upon your experience, that the parents were not involved in the murder of JonBenet Ramsey?
What I've seen and experienced, I say they were not involved.
The so-called ransom note that was left at the Ramseys' home demands $118,000, and we now know that $118,000 is the amount of the bonus John Ramsey was expecting this year. What does that say to you?
Well, who has this knowledge? The wife didn't have the knowledge. She doesn't know anything about that. This is money that's electronically placed in his 401k at the end of the year. So to me, it's kind of like the manifesto in the Unabomber. It begins to tell me more about the person who's responsible. This person has a very unique, intimate knowledge about his financial workings. Therefore, the person would have to be somehow related to his employment.
But Douglas remains focused on a piece of evidence that continues to haunt him, the 3-page note apparently left by the killer.
Again, I am very prejudiced because of the amount of money, the $118,000. Is that just a fluke? Is that just luck that they picked that money, that amount of money? I don't think so.
John Douglas came to believe the Ramseys were not responsible for JonBenet's death, but neither he nor anyone else has ever identified any other credible suspect. When we continue, the investigation continues, and the Ramseys speak out. Welcome back to Time and Again as we look back on the case of JonBenét Ramsey as it unfolded in the months following her murder at age 6 over Christmas 1996. The intense media scrutiny surrounding the case seemed at first to ensure that all the facts would come out, but neither the Boulder police nor the Ramseys seemed to have much to say to the media.
Movers today packed up the house where JonBenét Ramsey was found murdered in a basement room the day after Christmas. The Ramseys have not returned since, and JonBenét's mother has said she will never go back to their Tudor mansion where this mysterious case began. After almost 7 weeks of investigation, there has been no arrest, and Boulder police will not say who their prime suspects are. Secrecy has been the rule. Boulder police went to court today to try to keep secret the report of the autopsy performed on the body of JonBenet. They were opposed by lawyers representing news organizations. Boulder police are more open on one point, though, their frustration in getting the Ramseys to sit down for a formal police interview, even though the law does not require the Ramseys to do so. Police contend that the Ramseys have refused to consent to an interview under conditions set by investigators. For example, that the Ramseys agree to separate questioning. Bill McReynolds, who played Santa Claus at the Ramsey house before Christmas, says police recently took samples from him.
They took my fingerprints, they took my handwriting.
But questions of sloppy police work, inadequate searches, and contaminated evidence at the time JonBenet's body was discovered still haunt this investigation. A picture of the 6-year-old beauty queen has been hanging in the Boulder Police Detective's office since this investigation began 48 days ago. A reminder of what's still at stake.
In Boulder, Colorado tonight, at least 2 potential suspects in the murder of JonBenét Ramsey are off the hook. Officials now say that JonBenet's stepbrother and stepsister have been ruled out as suspects. NBC's Roger O'Neill has more on the investigation.
John Andrew Ramsey and his sister Melinda are the first relatives of the little beauty queen to be taken off the suspect list. For more than a month, Boulder police have been trying to verify a detailed account of the whereabouts of John Ramsey's eldest children. The hour-by-hour log begins on December 24th and places the two in Atlanta. It runs through the 26th, the day JonBenet's body was found. Lucinda Johnson, John Ramsey's first wife, provided the notarized document to police.
John Andrew and Melinda are being publicly cleared of the involvement in this case to relieve them of stress caused by inappropriate speculation.
While the parents still have not been cleared, NBC News has learned a final analysis of the father's handwriting shows no match with the ransom note found at the house the morning of the murder. Tests of the mother's handwriting have been inconclusive. Patsy Ramsey has now given a third sample to police.
Previous sets were influenced by the fact that Ms. Ramsey is on medication reportedly since December 26th.
Contrary to earlier reports, NBC News has learned that no semen was found on the girl's body or her clothing. The fingernail scrapings could be critical now for police if they expect to catch JonBenet's murderer. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Denver.
That was March 1997. 2 months later, the investigation had turned up little that was new.
The investigation into JonBenet's murder has, from all outward appearances, been stalled for the last month. Police expect to get in 2 weeks from Cellmark, a private crime lab in Maryland, results from scrapings taken from beneath the little girl's fingernails. But Boulder Chief Tom Kobe said weeks ago those results will not make or break the case. On the day after Christmas, when the body was found, Patsy Ramsey turned over a 3-page ransom note she says she found on a back stairway of their home. NBC News has learned the first words of that note read, "Listen carefully." It also threatened to behead JonBenet if the parents called police. Sources also say the writer of the note appeared to have been a woman, and there was deception in the printing style. Certain letters were also disguised in what sources say was an attempt to confuse police. The father has been ruled out as the author of the note, but police have requested a 5th handwriting sample from the mother of JonBenet. The ransom note has not been analyzed for fingerprints yet, as that test will destroy the paper and prevent any further handwriting analysis. A special task force of investigators and attorneys meets regularly, but one member, Bob Grant, a local district attorney, admits the evidence so far is very thin.
If Boulder officials knew and there was sufficient evidence to establish that, then there'd be someone named as a defendant and there'd be a case proceeding in court.
Boulder DA Alex Hunter has admitted there may never be an arrest in this case. It's been just over 4 months now since the little beauty queen's body was found, and most experts say the more time that goes by, the less likelihood the killer will ever be found.
When we come back, in an extraordinary appearance before a select group of reporters, John and Patsy Ramsey deny involvement in the death of their daughter.
For all of us. And I'm grateful that we are finally able to meet together face to face.
It's been more than 4 months since the body of JonBenet Ramsey was found brutally murdered. And for almost all that time, her parents have remained publicly silent. John and Patricia Ramsey's silence has echoed loudly across the nation, heightening suspicions that somehow they were involved in their daughter's death. The Ramseys disappeared from sight as a flood of tabloid rumors washed over America, that John Ramsey was somehow involved in kiddie porn, that Patsy was suicidal, that their marriage was on the rocks. But now their silence has been broken.
I'm appalled that anyone would think that John or I would be involved in such a hideous, heinous crime.
Suddenly this week, they decided to go public, partly to proclaim their innocence.
To those of you who may want to ask, let me address very directly, I did not kill my daughter, JonBenet.
Let me assure you that I did not kill JonBenet. I did not have anything to do with it. I love that child with my whole of my heart and soul.
And they appealed for help, reminding viewers of a $100,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of JonBenet's killer.
We'll find you. We will find you. I have that as a sole mission for the rest of my life.
We feel like there are at least 2 people on the face of this earth that know who did this. And that is the killer and someone that person may have confided in. And we need that one phone call. We need the one phone call. Please, please, if you know anything, I beg you to call us. Call us.
Only hand-picked journalists from Denver were invited to the meeting.
I got a phone call Wednesday night and said I would receive a message on my pager about a Ramsey interview.
KUSA's Paula Woodward, one of the invited reporters, told Dateline they didn't make it easy.
Then I got a page that said the Ramseys are having an invitation-only interview. Be in Boulder at 10 a.m. Thursday morning.
Seems kind of strange, doesn't it?
It was very secretive. I've never had anything like that before.
Be anywhere in Boulder?
Be anywhere in Boulder.
And so you got a phone call in Boulder Thursday morning?
Got a phone call in Boulder Thursday morning about 10 o'clock, and it said, come to this location. Here's your password to get in. Be sure you have press credentials, and get here as soon as you can.
So what was the password?
Subtract.
And there were conditions. No questions about the night of the murder. No questions about their interview with police a day earlier. That interrogation finally took place on Wednesday, after months of often heated negotiations. According to sources, the Ramseys were questioned separately. First Patsy for more than 6 hours, then her husband for 2.
Frankly, we were, as you might imagine, insulted that we would even be considered suspects in the death of our daughter, and felt that an interrogation of us was a waste of our time and a waste of the police's time, but because they have to do this, we're willing to do it.
Ramsey says the formal interview took so long to arrange because relations between the family and the police were badly strained, dating from the very beginning, when he claims police had threatened to withhold JonBenet's body until the Ramseys talked.
We were absolutely nauseated by that and appalled. And frankly, that's when the worm turned. When we heard that was going on, we just said, what are we dealing with here?
You asked, how are we coping? I mean, literally, it was hour by hour, day by day, week by week. I mean, there is no rule book written as to how you handle something like this. And I mean, we've suffered the loss of our child as well as this travesty of all of this that's happened on top of it.
There are still so many unanswered questions.
The autopsy released indicated death by strangulation, that it was classified as a homicide.
To this day, little more than that has been revealed about the circumstances surrounding JonBenet's death. Where did she die? In her bedroom or in the basement room where her body was found? What time did she die? Was she sexually abused? Only a partial version of the autopsy report has been released. It confirms JonBenet was strangled, bludgeoned, and there were scrapes and bruises on her face and body. The coroner also found abrasions in her genital area and indications of chronic inflammation of the genitals. Some experts claim that could be a sign of long-term sexual abuse, but John Ramsey says that allegation sickens him.
There have also been innuendos that she has been or was sexually molested. I can tell you those were the most hurtful innuendos to us as a family. They are totally false.
It was videos and photos like these that grabbed America's attention. Little JonBenet, the beauty queen, a 6-year-old in full makeup wearing provocative costumes.
That was a few Sunday afternoons. You know, that
the criticism I'm talking about. People accuse her of dressing her up like a little adult. Was there any inappropriate behavior going on?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. Mr. Those, and I'm so happy that we have those pictures. It's all that we have now. Those are memories.
That was just one very small part of JonBenet's life.
That was a few Sunday afternoons.
But there are other concerns. Wouldn't the killer have needed intimate knowledge of the house to know about the remote room where the body was found? If kidnapping was the original intention, why was the body left behind? Just 4 months ago, the Ramseys were members of Boulder's social elite. John Ramsey, the self-made millionaire who turned a computer company he founded in his basement into a $1 billion-a-year operation. And Patricia, a former beauty queen herself, Miss West Virginia 1977, who had introduced her daughter to child beauty pageants just a year before she died.
You may be eluding the authorities for a time, but God knows who you are, and we will find you.
An arrest is absolutely necessary in our lives for closure. Our lives cannot go on the same as they might have had JonBenet still been here.
We feel like God has a master plan for all of us, and that in the fullness of time, our family will be united again, and we will see JonBenet.
Dateline NBC reporting on the Ramsey case in May 1997, where things stand 6 months after the murder. And still to come, the 1-year anniversary, when Time and Again continues.
She was a lovely little princess, brutally murdered in her own home, making her case high profile and putting the Boulder police under intense pressure to solve it, and quickly. But it's been 6 months since JonBenet Ramsey's murder, and the police have made no arrests, have not even formally named a suspect. And if that weren't enough, now the police are facing increasing criticism from legal experts, other law enforcement officials, and the media over their handling of the case from the minute they arrived on the scene.
The situation right from the first footstep of the police officer was not handled right.
Jay Salpeter, a private investigator, is a former New York City police detective who has worked on close to 200 homicide investigations, including about 20 child murders.
Isn't the reality here, though, that police departments make mistakes all the time?
Policemen and detectives are human beings. We're going to make mistakes, but hopefully the mistakes are kept at a minimum. In this crime, the mistakes were just monumental.
Mistake number 1. The police did not secure the home as a crime scene when they arrived. They allowed friends and relatives of the Ramseys to go in and out of the house, contaminating evidence.
I don't want any more fingerprints that shouldn't be in that home. I want everyone out except only police personnel and possibly the Ramsey family.
Mistake number 2. The police just seemed to accept that the crime was what they were told by the Ramseys, a kidnapping. Mistake number 3. The police missed early signs that this could be something other than a kidnapping. There was no apparent forced entry into the house, and the ransom note itself was odd, including its demand of $118,000. Experts say ransom demands are usually large, round figures in the hundreds of thousands, and that notes tend to be short and to the point. This one rambled on for 2.5 pages.
The extent of the size of that ransom note is a joke. Who sits down and writes a 2-page ransom note? It's basically, we have your child, we'll call you later.
Mistake number 4. The police failed to thoroughly search the house. In a crime scene like this, police routinely search from top to bottom, looking for the missing person and evidence. Mistake number 5. The police allowed someone other than an officer to search the home. 7 hours after the police arrived, they asked John Ramsey to search the house, looking for anything unusual, which he did, accompanied by 2 friends, but no officers. Mistake number 6. The police did not immediately attempt to formally question obvious possible suspects about the case. Instead, the Boulder police allowed the Ramseys to grieve for a few days before requesting formal interviews, which ultimately did not take place until 4 months later, and after the Ramseys had received copies of the ransom note and transcripts of their initial conversations with police. Sal Peters says that the Boulder police have handled this case differently from most police departments.
I would say that most major cities handle their crime scenes the same way. Take it over. Bring in your forensic people. Search it.
But aren't we being rather unfair to the Boulder Police Department by leveling this criticism at them when we realize that they've had only 16 murders in the last decade?
We're not being unfair. They had other avenues. They could have reached out and help was being offered to them, which they did not take.
Sal Peter is just one of many who offered his expertise and was turned down. In fact, in the critical early days of the investigation, the FBI, Denver police, and reportedly the Colorado Bureau of Investigation were all rebuffed. Although in recent months, the police have accepted some outside help.
There will not be an arrest in this case unless there's a confession. There were no witnesses to this crime. The forensic evidence has been destroyed. How can there be an arrest? And it's time that the people in Boulder and the people of our country are notified of this.
That was June 1997. And despite the expressions of confidence of the Boulder Police Department, a solution to the case was nowhere in sight. Details from the autopsy report released by court order when we return in a moment.
It's been more than 6 months since JonBenet Ramsey was murdered. Today, we have new details from her autopsy report, and her death was at least as brutal as everyone feared.
Based on the information you've seen from the autopsy, can you walk us through what happened to this little girl?
She was strangled with a ligature and was struck on the right side of the head with a heavy object with considerable force. Around the time this happened, she was sexually assaulted, so that there was penetration of the vagina.
Dateline had Dr. Michael Baden, one of the nation's leading medical examiners and an expert witness at the O.J. Simpson trial, review the autopsy report. He spoke to us by satellite.
Doctor, was the assault something that appeared to be ongoing, or was it a one-time thing, or can you tell?
Whether or not there was prior sexual contact in the vaginal area is suggested by chronic inflammation in the vagina, but that could also be due to some prior vaginal infections of a benign nature.
The 6-year-old's body was found in the basement of her home December 26th. According to the autopsy, one cord tied around her wrist and another around her neck, strangled to death. It also shows her skull was fractured on the right side, with bleeding around the brain.
This is not a casual blow. It's a very strong blow to the right side of the head.
6 portions of the autopsy report remain sealed, including time of death and the position the body was found in. Information the police say could jeopardize the investigation if released. But for all it does tell, there still are many unanswered questions.
Does the information released today, Doctor, shed any new light as to who killed this little girl?
I do not think that at this stage these findings necessarily point one direction or another direction.
Tonight, a Ramsey spokeswoman says experts the family consulted believe the autopsy contains no evidence of abuse prior to the night of the murder.
That was July 1997. 5 months later, almost a year after the murder, the Ramsey case was back in the news, and NBC's Roger O'Neill was back on the story.
Her home is just an empty house now. Her grave still unmarked. Just some of the unfinished business of a little girl's almost year-old murder. Today there was a remarkable shift in police attitude, from confrontational to helpful.
Never been this popular before, guys.
But the new man in charge of the JonBenet Ramsey case still couldn't say police are any closer to solving the grisly crime.
We have not yet submitted a case for prosecution, nor have we prepared an arrest warrant.
Beckner confirmed John and Patsy Ramsey remain under the umbrella of suspicion, and police want to talk to the parents again. They have new questions. But NBC News has learned Boulder police still haven't eliminated at least 2 others, considered by some law enforcement officials, including FBI agents, as viable suspects. Neither has any connection with the family and would have been considered intruders in the Ramsey home. Asked about other suspects, Beckner acknowledged there were some, but he admitted much of the work his team is doing now is re-examining old clues.
Regardless of what has happened in the past, we are only looking forward with the goal of solving this case.
The words were pretty. The language was flowery.
But defense attorney Larry Posner adds,
we didn't hear anything today that was evidence of an investigation coming to a conclusion. This is an investigation still searching for answers.
With the complexities involved in this case...
Former federal prosecutor Mimi Wesson watched the police briefing.
The longer an investigation goes on, the more pessimistic one ought to be that there's going to be an arrest and a successful prosecution.
A year ago, candy canes welcomed visitors to the Ramsey home in Boulder. Today, where the family now lives in Atlanta, there is no sign of the holidays, and no sign that this Christmas tragedy will ever end.
That was December 1997, almost a year after the murder. The Ramsey case goes on, of course. Who killed JonBenet? That question may someday be answered, but why anyone would kill a beautiful 6-year-old girl? That is likely to remain a mystery for a very long time. That's time and again for now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jane Pauley, and we're history.
To those of you who may want to ask, let me address very directly, I did not kill my daughter, JonBenet.
I love that child with my whole of my heart and soul.